Hunter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is also to the Minister for Agriculture. Minister, you mentioned the National Farmers Federation and its Vice President has said of the government's changes to John Howard's environmental protection laws, and I quote, "Suddenly and with no warning or consultation, we get this put forward." Close quote. Minister, if farming groups were not consulted on these changes, the question becomes, were you consulted? And isn't this just another sign that this government is in absolute chaos?
I call the minister, and as he comes to the dispatch box, I call the minister. I just remind the member for Hunter to refer to former governments rather than individuals having laws.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for Hunter for his question. I think that it's very important that we clearly understand that local agricultural producers and others with legitimate proprietary economic, financial and other direct interests will not be affected and can be assured that their voices will be heard and the courts will be available for the protection of their rights. Farming groups can still use their organisation and resources to support individuals affected by decisions such as employed on occasion by the NFF through their fighting fund. So those with a standing interest, those with an interest who are pertinent to issues such as mines, have their capacity to have standing in the courts. As they did in the past, they still have. It is still the case. But what I am also finding, Mr Speaker, what I am also hearing is the people of Central Queensland want to know how their rights are going in regards to having their jobs supported in the Adani mine. That is an issue that the people of Dawson really want to know. They want to know whether they've got a future, whether they have a job, or whether you are still placing skinks and snakes in front of working men and women in Australia. The member for Callide, the
Minister for Agriculture will resume his seat. Minister for Agriculture doesn't have the call. The Minister for Agriculture doesn't have the call. His microphone's off. The member for Scullin, on a point of order.
On direct relevance, the question went to consultation with farming groups and the minister. He hasn't touched on either of those issues. I ask him to draw him back to the question.
The Minister for Agriculture is precisely on the question of his portfolio, and the issue he's raised now was raised in a question to him yesterday that he would have been within his rights not to answer. But I call the Minister for Agriculture and remind him to remain relevant to the question.
Thank you very much, because the member for Herbert, he certainly wants to know whether the Labor Party are going to put skinks and snakes ahead of the working men and women of Australia. That's a clear question. Where do your priorities lie? Where do your priorities lie? Do you still stand behind those in the high-vis suits, or do you still stand behind the high-vis snakes and skinks, which we never actually find? We never actually know until they go looking for them. They are more interested in supporting their friends in the Greens than supporting the working men and women of Central Queensland. Now, we have made sure that the farmers still have standing in the court. We have had cabinet discussions and to make sure that they still have standing and they can still fight their issues. And that is the information that we have received from the Attorney-General. That is the discussions of cabinet. But what you haven't done, what you haven't cleared up on the other side is when you decide that your skinks and snakes are actually less important than the people who believe that you are down here to represent, but actually we are representing the working men and women of Central Queensland.
I call the member.